we'll call to order the work session for the Jennings County School Corporation Board meeting. And this is a work session, but we do want to offer an opportunity for anyone present to make any public comment. All right, hearing none, we'll start down the work session agenda.
Yes, so I want to start with the purpose of work session. Although we are quite regular at doing this and are used to it, those watching at home may be unaware of the difference between a work session and a regular meeting. So in a work session, it is really, the purpose is for us to be able to share lengthy information with the board that doesn't typically fit into a regular meeting and allow the board opportunities to ask questions, have discussion, but there are no finalized decisions made in a work session. So please know that at any point interrupt, you have questions with what we're sharing. We just have some different presentation pieces this evening, facilities, strategic plan, cost containment, to allow ourselves plenty of time to receive that information and consider anything that you would like us to research further. So with that, I'm going to roll into the first part. We have Neola policies and handbooks for review. That usually starts what we have to work on. No policies this time, but Carrie is bringing us a handbook consideration.
Yes, unfortunately we have had some issues arise this last semester where we've been receiving false reports towards students and staff, and so we felt the need to update our handbook. So what I'm sharing with you is just some options on some wording in the handbook, and then I'd ask for you to review it and give me feedback, and then also a situation where would you like us to pursue going ahead and changing it for next semester and adding it to the handbook and sharing it back out, or waiting until the end of the school year and adding it to next year's handbook. As you look through the options, option 4 is a comprehensive policy. It covers harassment, bullying, threats, social media. It would be one that I would suggest that we look at using. And option number 7, same thing. It's laid out and it's together. At this time, we do have language in our handbooks. The elementary really focuses on bullying and cyberbullying. The high school and middle school, secondary, they have both. And they also have false reporting, but it doesn't give it as specific as I think our examples would give. So if you could just share any feedback, and also if you would like us to wait, or if you'd like us to start at second semester.
You say option 4 on this one?
Yes, it covers, yes, it's more comprehensive. It talks about harassment, bullying, threats, also brings in the social media side of it.
As social media has entered our society at a greater and greater level, unfortunately this has become part of our everyday, and this year we've seen a significant increase. It's always existed to some extent, but we've seen a lot of increase this year, and especially concerning social media. We think it would be helpful notification to parents, families of how that's going to be handled, and also the warning of sometimes it carries legal charges. So that's why option 4 and 7 we really liked, because it spells that out based on what kind of accusations are made.
And I think we definitely do agree with that. There's been some discussion at the judicial level about taking those things very seriously. So I think that we wouldn't be doing the students a service if we didn't warn them up front, if that's possible.
And like I said, we do have it to an extent. It's just not as detailed as I think we can make it now. We just haven't had these issues arise to the extent we have this last semester.
And if we would like to go ahead and move forward on it because we know it's a need, we would just approve which language we like, and then we would share that out with all parents. And since Parent Square does such a great job of making sure we reach every family, we would send that handbook addendum out through Parent Square to all families for notification.
My suggestion would be that we don't delay. I think we need to go ahead and get it sent out. It doesn't make sense, especially like what Travis said. If the judicial system is, ready to, put consequences to it, we need to make sure that the students, their family members understand what exactly that means to them. So putting this off or delaying until we can do a new handbook copy doesn't make sense. I think my preference would be to go ahead and get it out to everyone.
I agree. We've had so much of this in the past year, and I know some of our staff have just really been put through the ringer. And I feel like to protect not our staff, but students, it's imperative that we get it as soon as possible.
If you have feedback on any of the options, please get it to Carrie. And then we would like to bring a recommendation back in January then, in the January regular meeting.
So Carrie, just
Yes.
as Travis and I just probably interrupted and talked when.
That's all right.
Sorry about that. But can you what are the differences between 4 and 7? Like you're recommending 4 and there's 7.
I think 4 covers it more detailed. 7 was kind of written more as like a secondary handbook, but I feel like 4 combines them all together and it addresses every issue that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
But I can do a combination of them also.
I mean, I kind of like, instead of posting or sharing, I like digital content. It could be anything, anywhere. I like the wording of that. I like that the legal code is included. I mean, that we need to make sure that that is included. I don't know what the, what the great reading level is. If that matters, we might want to run it through a reading level to make sure that everybody, just because when it's this type of content,
Yes.
it can get a little heavy on that side, and I would want to make sure that everyone that it's going to can understand and read it. That might be a suggestion before
Perfect.
that we set on one or the other.
So option 4 gives us the most discretion and kind of covers the most things, right?
That's what I feel like. When we discussed it, that's the one we felt like that was most detailed and covered what we needed to cover. And I will do all that, Amy, and then I will share it back out with you for any more. If you have any other feedback, you can email me, give me a call. I can add it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Todd is going to share with us update on where we are currently with pre-K. I know we've been keeping a close eye on that as funding has been cut at the federal and state level. And then moving forward, what are some options for pre-K?
So the first page of the blue copy that's coming around, this is just kind of the current state of pre-K. It's a lot of the things that we've already gone over and I've shared with you, but I just put it here so it's all on one page. So currently we do have 3 sites. We have one at Brush Creek, North Vernon, and one at Sand Creek. Our current enrollment, we were full at the start of the year and we did have a little bit of a waiting list. We've gone through that waiting list. And since November, we were full in November at Thanksgiving. We've actually lost 7 students and we do not have anyone on the waiting list. A lot of that is because of the $50 a week charge. We have been giving them some flexibility, giving them some time to pay that. It's not like if you miss the first week, you're out. But we have been giving them some flexibility. But that has been a concern, collecting that fee. The cost for our pre-K program, so we do have a site with certified teachers, and it costs about $150,000 per site to run that site. That's the curriculum, that's lunch, breakfast, snack, that's the teacher and the para. So that includes everything. With non-certified teacher, it's about $110,000 per site. Pre-K vouchers, so these are just updates that I've shared throughout the year, but the first announcement was that they were going to let less students qualify. Then they said they're going to have the amounts that students qualify for is going to be decreased, and now they've come out and said that there will be no new vouchers given out for next school year, so the 26 year. So our current challenges, we do have 3 sites, so we are currently running 3 sites, so that does cost a little bit more to run all 3 sites. With voucher reimbursement, or without voucher reimbursement, we'll have to increase our fee. And then just the consistent difficulty in collecting pre-K fees. It's we're doing the best we can, and we're tracking it, and we're sending out letters, but that is becoming more challenging to get that feedback. So then going to the next page, this is just potential considerations for next year. So if we want to continue to maintain a pre-K option for our families, we're going to have to look at how we can operate that in our district's financial constraints. And these are some things that we need to consider if we move forward with this. The first one is consolidating to one site. That's going to save us some money. Instead of running 3 sites, consolidate it to 1 site. Revise our tuition model. We've been looking at surrounding local pre-K programs and the ones that are comparable to us, where it's all day, every day. It's about $150 on average per week. So if we looked at increasing our model from $50 per week to $150 per week, and then staffing, looking at more of a non-certified staffing to run our program. So the benefits of restructuring our pre-K program, this would maintain our district-run pre-K option, and it would avoid another shutdown, which we had to do during COVID time. It works to ensure that our financial sustainability through right-sizing and updating our tuition, provides families with continued access to a safe, secure, early learning environment, and it allows Jennings County Schools to continue to build upon the success of our pre-K program. Our pre-K, our kindergarten readiness assessments, our students that were in our pre-K program scored above average on a lot of those pre-K readiness assessments. So, conclusion, just kind of summarizing all of that. With us losing voucher funding and ongoing tuition collection challenges, we're working through potential plans that offer the most stable and responsible path forward. Consolidating to 1 site with 20 students at a tuition rate of $150 per week would potentially allow our district to continue offering pre-K services without creating additional budget pressures. It would also allow us to pilot a new self-sustaining model within a new funding structure. We're going to continue to explore potential options that provide high-quality instruction in a fiscally responsible model, and hopefully we'll have some options that we can bring back to you in January or February.
Since we're live streamed, I would just add to this, we've seen such great impact from the pre-K program. The kids' scores on their readiness assessments are very high compared to what we've seen in the past. The kids who've participated, enrolled in kindergarten, they stayed as a part of our corporation, and their parents have a full-time certified daycare safe option for them to continue employment. So if there is a business or an employer out there that would like to partner with us and help subsidize some of the cost of providing pre-K, we would love to continue to do so. We are just really stuck with the continued constraints that keep coming down the pike that pull money away from pre-K that we had as an option to make it sustainable. So if there are businesses or other people who would like to help partner with us, we are very welcome. We're putting out flyers and we're sharing that information out, and we'll keep you updated. And there is some legislation out there to try to bring back some funding. I don't know how hopeful that is right now in a non-budget year at the State House, but we are definitely looking at any option that we can come up with.
So you have reached out to let businesses and...
We have a flyer getting ready to go out. I've had some individual conversations, but we're going to send out a broad mailer just to see if we have anyone that's
And
interested.
you may have a lot of interest.
Yes, we're very hopeful that we do. It's a wonderful program. I would want to take anybody to visit. It's just so joyful to see our youngest learners happy at school, safe at school, and just ready to get started. It's amazing what 4-year-olds can do.
So Todd, do we have on the money we're not being able to collect, do we have a plan or a policy, or how do we go about working on that?
No, so we give them about 3 weeks flexibility, and then if they haven't caught up by that point, then they're dismissed from the program. But collecting that money...
There's nobody filling their seat either.
Right now, we do not have anyone on the waiting list.
Any other questions for Tom?
On those considerations for 2026, 2027, you've got the consolidation, the tuition model, and the staffing. Are you looking at doing like one of the, like if you did one of those, would that solve it? Or is it one where we're looking at maybe having to do?
It's going to have to probably do all of them.
Okay.
And probably some more.
Okay. I was afraid that was the answer, but I had to ask for hope.
All right. we ready to roll on to facilities? So Roy and Philip have an update. This is a comprehensive update on facilities. So this is gonna take us a little bit. Typically, work sessions is when we spend time talking about building needs, what we've done so far, what's on the horizon. We also have 3 open bonds. So they're gonna take us on a facility tour, if you will, and give us some updates, so.
All right, yeah, and I'll probably do most of the talking. Roy's here to answer the questions I obviously don't know. I had to bring a heavy in to be able to take care of stuff I don't understand. There's gonna be a little bit of redundancy in this because we're covering different aspects. The first 2 sheets, the first sheet you got in front of you says completed projects from the strategic plan presentation. The last time we had a strategic plan meeting, we gave you a list of items by building. These are the ones that are completed. The next sheet we'll go over is the ones that have been started. So just sort of an update on what we said we were gonna do a couple years ago to what we've got done. So at the high school, you can see we've got an outside freezer. We've updated the sound system in the auditorium. We've got the CT project with the 3 different areas. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the bond. Modernization of the cafeteria area and classroom renovations on the 2nd floor. Those are all things listed on the strategic plan. Middle school, paved the walking path from Long Street, Brush Creek, new flooring in the facility and the faculty bathroom. You have several areas of roof repairs and overhead projectors in the classrooms have been replaced. Graham Creek, you've got new roofing for the canopy and next to the gym, new fencing and gate around the playground area, and a freezer cooler equipment upgrade for the kitchen. Hayden, fence replacement around the playground, a freezer cooler equipment upgrade there, and restroom upgrades there. NBE, there was a flashing and brick issue for the exterior of the building in Building 2. That's been fixed. Replace inside walk-in freezer and cooler equipment. The new blinds in a few classrooms and installation of new whiteboards. Sand Creek, several roofing repairs. Remove the brush pile from the field out front. The new floor tile in the SPED classrooms. And playground equipment upgrade at Sand Creek. Scipio, adding a fence and gate around the back to make it more secure where the kitchen entrance is. JCEC, LED lighting upgrade and lighting upgrade in the tech building. Central office, new AI foam door release for the front door, camera system upgrade, and exterior improvements. So those are all things that were on that strategic plan.
So 3 years ago, those were things that we prioritized on that list.
Things that we've started but haven't completed is your next page. So there you've got, and I'm not going to read all these individually because you've got the safety and secure entrance window film at all locations. And on top of that, the high school also had classroom renovations downstairs, which have started but not completed. Middle school, HVAC control upgrade, along with some pool equipment upgrade that's been started. Brush Creek, HVAC control upgrade. NBE, some bathroom upgrades. Sand Creek, continued roofing because that's where the cycle we're at. Scipio, HVAC and controls upgrade. JCEC, HVAC and control upgrade. So those are ones that I'm gonna repeat those coming up on a bond because some of these things are gonna be in the bond section of it. So those are items that we've not quite taken to completion on the strategic plan. On top of that, the third list you have is the major summer and fall projects. Now this is the ones where we're addressing from the 5-year plan that we put out every year in August. These are items that are somewhat more imminent, things that have happened, things that some predicted, some we haven't predicted. So at the high school, we've parking lot crack fill all the entire lot. Back parking lot, we also sealed and striped, and we resurfaced the track, pole vault, and long jump approaches, and we'll talk more about that in the next section. At the middle school, we've got the coil of the desert air unit. That's the HVAC for the pool area. Parking lot crack and fill there. Concrete pad and ramp. The concrete pads around back. There's a piece. What's sitting on that, Roy? It's a dust collector. Dust collector's on it. And then HVAC server upgrade for temperature controls at the middle school. Brush Creek, resurfaced the basketball court out there and flooring in a pre-K room. Graham Creek, new water heater. Hayden, flooring in the conference room. NVE, new water heater, and we had various leaks because that building's just got some older piping, so we had some things going on there we had to work on. Parking lot crack fill on all of it, and storefront and flooring in office 1. That area was looking really bad, and the bottom part of it was not very good from a storefront standpoint. So we've got metal or some sort of false thing there, and then you've got the glass above it. And then the flooring in office 2 in the workroom, that's to the right when you walk in the door. That's NVE. Sand Creek this year, we did the parking lot crack fill, roof replacement in section A, and we'll talk about what you've already talked about last meeting was section B. We're gonna be doing that, I believe, in 2026. New sidewalk to the gym entrance, that's from the, would be the south side going into the gym. At Scipio, we had to get a boiler, new concrete basketball court out there. That one was gonna be a resurface, but it was just so bad we had to go ahead and put a new court in there. Parking lot crack fill there also. HVAC server upgrade for temperature controls there, and remove unusable playground equipment and did site prep for future playground equipment. There was just a really bad spot that every time it rained, the kids couldn't play there for a week. So when we tore that out, we fixed that part so it's gonna drain better. JCEC, HVAC server, and upgrade. So we'll take a small break there. Of the first 3 sheets, any questions about how those transpired or any other thing before we go into the bond stuff?
You mentioned something about Scipio having to have a new basketball court, but we thought it was gonna be resurfaced. Was there anything else in all those lists that just kind of went sideways, that we had to spend a lot more than we thought, or everything else was kind of what we expected?
No, and oddly, I mean, O'Mara's does a really good quote on that, because they sort of felt bad about how that shook down too, because they went on there to resurface it, and it was just poor timing. It happened to be pretty soft, so yeah, and it was also not as thick as what they anticipated. So we got a pretty good deal on the concrete, even though it wasn't really anticipated. Obviously, they didn't charge us anything for the first. They worked on it for a day and a half, didn't charge us any of that, just trying to salvage something out of a mess. And then they just came back and said, "How about we do this, and we'll cut you a really good deal," and they did. So
HV control updates has also been a little bit of a challenge, but they're very specific in an older system, so there's very few people who can work on them, and we're still in the process of working that out in a couple of the buildings, especially the middle school.
to give us visibility, and that's all about. I mean, the system's good, it's just the visibility that's a problem. All right. Any other questions on what we've done there? Okay, now we're gonna have a little bit of redundancy when we move into the bond. So we've done 3 bonds over the last 3 years, and we're gonna sort of get into the details of those with this presentation. So, 2023, we got a bond for $1.775, or $1,775,000, issued in the fall of 23. Purpose was to renovate the high school to enhance CTE programs in conjunction with the Indiana Ready One grant. You guys remember that, which is that matching grant. With that grant, they contributed $1,145,000. And then we had to at least match that, and we've done that side of it to make sure that it was a matching grant where we had to do at least that amount. We've gone past that amount. Work started in May of 24 on that one, and the main part of it was completed by August 25. It took longer than we thought. There were still a few loose ends after 25, but the majority of that was done. We were able to run the programs. We were able to run the programs in the fall of 24, actually, but there was just some small little things we had to keep working through, and I wasn't sure if we was ever going to get to the finish line, but we eventually got there. For this bond, all the proceeds have to be spent at the high school. That was part of the way the bond was written. Now, it didn't all have to be CTE, but that was the main focus. There's a list of the major things that happened for this program. We did the greenhouse at the high school, the culinary arts cafe area, health science CNA program, welding and advanced manufacturing, and then CDL certificate. So everything to do with those 4 programs, a variety of things. We got a semi-tractor and a trailer to be able to teach kids CDL, so when they graduate, they're certified the day after they graduate. They can get in a vehicle. They don't have to go through additional training. They can start making money immediately. So that's one of the more exciting ones there. We also did, so once we got the CTE stuff done, figured out what we had left, prioritizing what else could happen. Those are specific CTE programs. The rest of these have a lot of elements that fall in line with that. The auditorium sound system upgrade, auditorium lighting upgrade, and the auditorium video wall. Those have CTE elements to that you can teach in a variety of, I think you could teach the,
So
you
grad
better.
pathways is one of them.
What was that?
Grad pathways
Yeah.
is one of them. Mhm.
That's the part I don't understand as well, so that's why, yeah. All right, on top of that, we were also able to do some advanced manufacturing with the 3D printer, again, another CTE item. Second floor classroom renovations, and then we've done some window graphics throughout the building also.
So one thing I would mention about bonds, as we get ready to talk about cost containment later, bonds are very specific money to a purpose, and we can't use the bond money. We have to state before we apply for the bond what we're going to be using it for, and we can't use it for any other purpose. So it can't be used for staffing funding, it can't be used for other areas, so we have to follow that very closely. On this one particular, we were bound by even more rules because we had a matching grant. Ready grant is a state grant, so we had to stick within the CTE area for a majority of the funds.
All right, any questions on the first bond? And this bond is very close to being, we have until the fall of '26. We're gonna be done before that, but technically, we've gotta have it spent by the fall of '26. 3 years is what your deadline is on that. All right, the next bond was the fall of '24. That was the $3.5 million. A little broader on this one. It was, the purpose of its district-wide capital project needs with a central focus on school safety. So that was our, last year when we did this, that was our main goal in that. So the first step in that was securing an architect. We had what you could say would be a little pain with the architect when it came to the CTE. So we shopped around again and went with a different architect after interviewing 5 or so. And go ahead, Nikki.
I was just gonna say the Garmin Millers who we selected for that.
And Garmin Miller is the person we did. So with this one, we met, I believe we had a work session talking about the concerns that we'd be doing with this bond. Obviously, the number one concern was the secured entrances. The second item we picked was the track resurface, and the third being the pool upgrade. To dive into those a little bit deeper, we're estimating around 1.5 for the secured entrance. We've got Garmin Miller as the architect on that. Design phase is complete. We're currently in the estimate phase, so they're getting cost for everything. The current schedule shows opening bids around February of 26, with the project starting after the last day of school in 26. And along with that, there could be other safety enhancements, safety film and or weapons detection system for the secondary level.
So we have been focused on the secure entries at all school, but we've also had those conversations about safety film. And I'm interested in your feedback. We had today a weapons detection called Open Gate come in and present to us. We are interested in pursuing, while we have the bond money specifically, those types of systems have an upfront expensive cost. But once they're installed, we were checking with them today that it wasn't an ongoing fee. There was limited ongoing fee with this system. So we would be interested in placing these at the secondary level, so middle school, high school. The advantage is, if you've been watching the news, and this year in Indiana, there's been concerns at athletic events in different areas. These systems are portable, so you can use them at the beginning of the day, and then you can use them take that to the football field to use, or use it outside of any type of event. It's portable. So we're interested in looking into adding that to the safety bond. That type of system isn't something that in a typical year in the general budget that we would tackle, but through this safety bond we could. So I'm interested to hear your feedback on that. It's becoming much more common in schools in Indiana. We included the middle school and high school staff admin today in athletics to listen to the presentation, and they're very interested. And they said they could get 300 students in 15 minutes through each gated area, if you will. I'm calling it gated area, it's just 2 poles you walk through. So it would take 4 systems, and fit within the cost constraints of what we were hoping. So if you have any feedback on that, we're happy to hear it. And it can be calibrated in a different way to detect different types of concerns and safety threats or weapons.
Well, sadly, we don't have a choice, do we? The times that we're living in.
It would be a definite enhancement, and for us, the piece of it is the upfront cost is significant, and I don't know it in another time, it would be easy for us to tackle. But with this specific bond and earmarking for safety, it just makes sense at the same time, was our thought on that. So if you have further thoughts on that, feedback, please reach out, let us know, send it to Philip, Roy, me, any of us, we'll collect those together.
Okay, the second priority item on the list was the track resurface. It was about $330,000, and the purpose of it was to resurface was due to the deterioration of the track subgrade and surface. We didn't realize the subgrade was as bad as it was until we started peeling off the surface, and then that really answered the questions on why we were seeing the surface cracks so bad. There was just some, probably 20-year-old, wouldn't have been, Roy? Oh, yeah. At least that long. So Dave O'Mara was the contractor on that. It was started in May of 25, completed by October of 25, and we still need to complete the long jump pit boxes. We hadn't done that because we just ran out of time. Third item that's been identified was the pool upgrade. This is about $400,000, and this upgrade is due to the same type of deterioration, but this is the original pool equipment that was put in 1989. So you guys want to take a tour down there, I can show you, but basically once you head down to the basement, every single thing's rusted down there. The pipes holding the electric, just everything, pumps, controls, filters, the electrical stuff. So what this would be a complete overhaul of that scenario. And the contractor for this is Performance Services. This could start as early as May 14th of this year if we get approval. March of 14 of this year. And the reason I say get approval, we're currently, this is the $3.5 million bond. And you can see I've only listed about right at 2.3, let's say. There's a big unknown on the safety side. We've got 1.5 earmarked for that, but until some of these estimates come in, we really just don't know. We took these off of, we set this originally from 2 years ago's sort of data, and the modifications and the quotes at all 8 locations and the 10 locations are just varying. So until we have some numbers in, it's hard to say how much we can commit. Once we know that we're going to be in good shape, we could pull the trigger on the pool upgrade, but that leaves future considerations for the remaining would be a combination of the original bond list that we worked on to come up with the amount and current eminent needs, because eminent needs could trump something on the list. 2 years ago, we thought this would be a good idea, but there could be something that's developed over the last 2 that would need to take precedent over that.
So we're proceeding with the secured entries and the safety enhancements. The track resurface is already completed. If we still have funding, pool upgrade comes next, and we'll bring that for approval. Then we will pause with any remaining funds in that bond and bring back that prioritized list of needs and ask for your feedback before we move on to another project in that bond.
And then the last bond was the one that got issued this fall. It was for $2.9 million. The purpose of it was district-wide capital project needs again, but with the central focus on HVAC upgrade at Brush Creek and Scipio. So you put the wider range on there in case something really bad happens between now and needing to spend it. But this was the main focus on this, like we talked about when we had the hearing, was it's Brush Creek and Scipio's office. Now, the Brush Creek HVAC upgrade's about $2.5 million. Contractor for its Performance Services. We opened the bids on December 1st, and we've reviewed the open book pricing on December 3rd. Bids came in favorable at 2.59. We were estimating that to be around 2.7, so we had a little gap there that we were pleasantly surprised with. With that, I will be bringing the request for approval at the board meeting 2 days from now for this work to get done. And the reason why this one moved a lot faster than the previous two, this was more of a known thing. This is something that Performance Service has been working with us for 20 years on in a variety of different areas. So it was very specific, very known, and to be able to get the equipment to do the upgrade in May, we would need to approve it, if so willing, we need to approve this in the meeting 2 nights from now. Now, the one thing about this, we took out one item because we were concerned about being over, because if we were over, then we'd have to start back at ground zero, which didn't sound like a good idea. So the pickup exhaust fan and makeup air for the kitchen was pulled out. It was on the master list when we talked about it, but we pulled it out for fear that with the way the inflation's been, we may be over and then we'd be stuck not being able to accept anything. So that's gonna be about $100,000. We were to add that back in with our 140 to 150 favorability. But we could do that, and I just wanted to leave that option out there for you. This project would start after the last day of school and be completed by August 1st of 2026. In conjunction with that is a small portion, $160,000 at Scipio for the office unit. Contractor Fred, Still Performance Services. It would start on when school ended in 26 and completed by August 1st. Any questions on this one? Because this is one Roy's way more versed in than I am.
And Performance Services is presenting on Thursday
Yes.
on that proposal.
All right. And lastly, from a facility standpoint, is a facility analysis. It would be to our advantage to consider approving a new facility study in the near future, meaning as early as January, if I could take it to the meeting for approval, probably. Our last one was done in 2019, so it's 6 years, going on 7 now by when 26 hits. And industry standard's about 1 every 5. And if you think about what the purpose of this is, we've done 6 years worth of projects, meaning everything from the turf football field to the entryway there at going into the baseball and football, and all the stuff we just talked on the list, and then some, multiple roof projects. And it would really help us support the strategic plan, because the strategic plan is trying to figure out, how do we match the facility study to where we're wanting to go with the strategic plan. And 9-year or 6-year-old data with half the stuff being done, or a third of the stuff being done, sort of puts you behind the 8 ball, and that really doesn't help you a lot.
And when you really talk about cost constraints, which we're going to talk about even more in depth tonight, the facility study goes in and looks at a building and prioritizes needs and wants and gives you some cost on that. So we really prioritize as a district keeping our facilities nice, especially since some of them are of an older age. Well, part of that is maintaining them and doing ongoing maintenance. And so it would help us highlight what's critical to be done next, so we make sure that we're budgeting for that. So the facility study gives us that data back.
And to be honest, I already mentioned this part on there. With our bonding situation in a couple of years, we are going to need to know that information. I contacted Garmin Miller, which is our architect that we've done, and they said they could do it, and they talked to Roy about some specifics. So we're trying to get some numbers together and figure out what that's going to look like, and we'll have all that information before we bring it back to you.
And with that, part of what we've done in the last 2 years, if we had used debt falling off to get bonds to do long-term maintenance that needs to be done to keep the operations fund having enough to do our daily tasks. That's something we want to continue to do because we have that capacity within our debt amount in the next few years without raising taxes in that manner. So that's our plan to continue to bring back to you and have that information going forward. So if you have any questions about that or about that debt capacity that's dropping off, we'll continue to bring that data back. Questions? That was a lot of facilities.
Roy didn't have to say anything.
No.
Just the way he likes it.
All right. Then we are going to move forward to talk about strategic planning. surprising as it is, we are at the last year of our current strategic plan. We always intended it to be 3 years, and we are in the last year of that. So it is time to talk about a new strategic plan. I'll preface this with saying, we are going to bring our data back to you in January. We'll talk about that in a minute, and I can't wait to bring it back to you. We knocked those goals out of the park. Our academic achievement, our students graduating, we even far exceeded the goals we set for ourselves. We have made substantial improvements across the board in academics, graduation rate, opportunities for kids in the last 3 years. So when we talk about a new strategic plan, we are not talking about stopping any of the good work we are doing, because it's so essential that we keep moving forward with that. It will be enhancing what we're doing, and since we are doing well in academics, what new opportunities can we present? What new things can we enhance for our kids and attract students to our district? So within that, we'd like to say that it's time to extend, but not only that, we feel like we can add another year on that process. 3 years felt a little short in the end for all the work that went into it. So we would like to talk about doing blueprint, little play on words there, go big blue, blueprint for 2030 as our new strategic plan. The process that I'd like to get some feedback, we've been looking at a timeline. We would start with a comprehensive needs analysis. That's the part where last time you sat for 2 hours, we went through every bit of data you could possibly consider about our corporation in detail. So we would like to do that comprehensive needs analysis again, and that would be in January. So data on the current state of the district, our strengths and our needs, and we would like to include data from the community, staff, our parents, and our students, and other multiple data sources. And I would like to talk about that data in a minute with some surveys that we'd like to go out across the community, but I'll go to that after we finish this timeline. Then we would take all of that data to define a vision and mission. And this would be in February. Sometimes you can spend as an organization a lot of time talking about a vision and mission when not getting to that end goal. We would instead be using the feedback from our surveys to help us with that process. There's some real modern ways of looking at survey feedback to come up with keywords and priorities from across the community to help streamline that process. So we would be using an analysis of that to come up with our vision and mission statement. We might choose to adopt something similar to what we have. We might choose something completely different for the time that we're in February. Then in March and April, we would use that data to do and our stakeholder input and our accountability frameworks, which are new from the state in January. Carrie's going to do a presentation on those, to be paired with our vision and our mission to come up with our strategic plan goals and action steps. Then we would be using May and June to get those communicated and shared out, broad communication with our staff and others so that they're able to use those for school improvement planning. Those sessions usually are intensive between May and July for the following school year. And our school improvement plans are living, active plans. We have committees that come together at each school and align what's in the strategic plan with that building specific needs. So they would have that data. And then throughout 2026 through 2030, we would continue to implement, review, and progress monitor where we're at and embed all of that work into our school culture and activities. So in the world of strategic planning, that is a short timeline. However, seeing that a lot of these processes are things that we've done before 3 years ago and have successfully been able to implement, I feel like it's achievable. The biggest ask would be, and we'll look at calendars and I want some feedback, is that comprehensive needs analysis in January, finding time to go through that together. So feedback on the concept and the timeline. You okay with that? We'll be busy, but it's achievable. Then the next piece to that is I want to share some of these survey examples. We really wanted to prioritize getting feedback from all of our stakeholders in this process. And focus groups are an option. But when we've had events where we've invited community and parents, thinking about some different situations that we had last year that we had outside people come in and do presentations, we didn't get a huge turnout. But we did get a good turnout when we did a survey that we sent out digitally in the past. So I think one of the better ways for us to get input across the community is through digital surveys that people can do on their phone at any time. So we'd really like to take that approach. We should make sure that Molly gets a copy. We'd like to take that approach. So the first one I'm sending around to you is a sample of a parent or guardian survey. And you're going to see themes through these 4 surveys that align, so that when we look to get the results, we can pull together the different viewpoints in a clear manner. And I'm just going to do some overall stepping through it. I'm not going to read it word for word by any means. But on the parent and guardian side, it has an optional section to identify who they are, and then ask some questions about their academics, and their feedback on our academics. I'll give an example. What academic area should be a top priority for the district? Select up to 3. Reading and literacy, math, science, CTE, college readiness, special education services, honors programs, support for struggling learners. Then the next section goes into student well-being and the school climate. So my child feels safe at school. My child feels cared for and respected at school. What should the district prioritize related to student well-being? The 4th section is on communication and family engagement. So it asks questions about how we communicate. What's the parent's preferred way for us to communicate? What would make them feel more engaged? The 5th section is about staffing. So everything from what is their feedback on if our facilities are safe, clean, and well maintained, to what we should prioritize. And then the 6th section has the open comment, and none of the surveys have more than 20 questions. But in the next 3 to 5 years, what is the most important outcome the district should strive for? And there's a list for them to choose from. What do you believe are Jennings County's greatest strengths? What are the greatest needs for improvement? And then finally, describe an ideal school in 20 words or less. And there's some really cool things we can do for mission statement development from the feedback on these open response. So that would be a sample of the parent survey. Next coming around to you is the sample of the staff survey. I'm not going to read it as in detail because you're going to see it's very similar, different wordings in most of these sections. So for staff, first trying to get the role so that we see if the viewpoint varies by roles or buildings that people serve in. How long have they been an employee? Then there's those questions about academics in section 2. Questions about school climate and the student experience in section 3 again. Section 4 is also about communication and engagement, but more oriented to staff. Staffing, facilities, and operations is section 5 again. And you'll see that section 6 is that same idea with long-term goal feedback and some open-ended questions. And the next part I would say is students, and I will preface this with, we do not typically give surveys to our students, but we do allow surveys when it has to do with their school experience and their academics, and that is because we need to continually also get student opinions on improvement and ongoing opportunities. So this survey is in a simpler, straightforward format, written in student-friendly language, but it is the same sections. You'll see it's about their learning and academics. 3 is about their experience and climate. 4 is about communication and voice. Resources and support. And then finally, that last section 6 about open response and long-term planning, what they would like to see in school. And the final survey is different, but we're excited about the idea. We've talked a lot of different times about how do we get our local businesses and community partners more involved, and how do we get them a voice in our planning. And we are hoping that this survey serves 2 purposes. This is for local employers and community partners, and one portion's for us, for strategic plan, but the other portion is for the high school in pairing for work-based learning and apprenticeships. So we're trying to get dual purposes to this survey. So this one's slightly different. We ask what type of organization it is, how many employees they have, and if they have some of our graduates. Then we ask about how they feel about our students' readiness and skills when they come to them as employees. And then we ask, where do new employees most often need additional preparation? And there's a list they can select from. Workplace expectations, communication, technical skills, and then there's more options. We ask about their career awareness and preparation. And section 4 is a big one for the high school for us to gather some information. Work-based learning and partnerships. And as we talk about new accountability and new diplomas, this is critical for us. And then you will see communication. How do they prefer to be communicated with, and how would they like to collaborate? We still have that important section 6 that asks about district goals looking ahead and their open-ended responses. And then you see on the last bit, we ask, would you like to be contacted about partnership opportunities? And can you provide a name? So at that point, they can decide if they'd rather not be anonymous because they want to do some partnership work. So what I'm asking is, I would love to get these finalized of the format that we like by the end of this month, so that in January, we can send out all of these surveys, so that when we meet to look over our comprehensive needs analysis, I'll have some of that data back for you. So if you would look over, if you have feedback now, I'm happy to take it and make my notes, but I just threw a whole bunch of information at you very quickly. So if you have edits, if you have suggestions, if you have something you'd like to see added, we can definitely do so in these surveys. I did try to keep it under 20 questions, just so people don't get fatigued. And I did try to keep some common sections so that we can compare the student versus the parent versus the employer versus the staff experience. Feedback on using surveys in general. In support of that, give it a try.
And the fact that every base, I think, is good. It'll be very interesting to see how they all come back.
We're excited.
Especially the last.
Yeah.
We think so too. We're excited to see what we get. So then the last step in strategic plan that I want to talk about tonight, or the last piece, those were our surveys, that's our timeline. I want some, what is your preference on how we do that comprehensive needs analysis work? So I'm gonna guess an hour and a half of time, because we're talking about data of every aspect of a corporation, right? So our choices could be, we could do a work session similar to this. We could split it into work sessions before 2 regular meetings. It's a lot to take in all at once if you want to do a 45 before one and a 45-minute before another. Or we can put it in sections in regular meetings. Just feedback on how you prefer to get a whole bunch of data.
Work session.
Work session.
Work
Yeah,
session?
it's more comfortable.
Okay. I'll coordinate with you on that. Good for that.
I do have a question about just the surveys. It's a lot. I'll need to look at, I personally will need to just look at it to thoughtfully consider. But I think it's a little bit interesting, and I'm just wondering if you have feedback on the staff survey. I think what piqued my interest, or not sure why, within the survey itself, in section 3, when it talks about school climate, it does say school climate and student experience, but it's very focused on the student, and this is a staff survey. So I'm curious as to why you're surveying on student experience instead of asking the staff about their experience. Like, do the staff feel safe at school? Do the staff feel cared for and respected? So I'm just curious as to if this is just maybe a standard survey that lots of places use, but I was just curious that it actually asked how it asks for the staff to state how the students feel instead of themselves.
So the reasoning behind it, although I like the addition of including some extra questions in there, the same question from a staff perspective, it's coming from the piece of gathering info for a strategic plan on school safety. And so the plan of a school safety is student safety. Staff are encompassed in that, but most of it you're talking about when you're talking about metal detectors or weapons detection, that's students walking through. When you're talking about that lived safe experience, it's students walking through. So that's where the intent is from, but I love adding the staff portion too, because it would be interested to see if those line up, how they feel like the students feel, and then how they feel themselves.
Well, and, I mean, maybe you don't plan on having the staff walk through metal detectors, but in a lot of healthcare organizations, the team members also walk through them, right? You could have a disgruntled team member, or, so, I mean, I wouldn't say that that type of equipment, if we're gonna invest in that for safety, would be only used for students. I think you have to really think broad when it goes to that. Again, I'm speaking about healthcare because it's probably what I know best, but I just would, yeah, just maybe think about just this, because again, I think staff are gonna have their own idea about how they feel safe, about how they feel cared for and respected at school, and yeah.
And I think we could pretty safely like add on to the staff survey and not worry about them getting fatigued and not filling it out, because
That's a really good point.
Because most of the staff members I know usually have quite a bit to say.
That's a really good point. Because going over 20 questions in that section could even be done in different pieces. So we'll look on some questions on that, and we'll send something back out with some revisions. But if you have a particular question you're interested in, send it my way so we can get it on there and include it. And I'll also be asking for feedback. It's on our teacher discussions agenda this week, talking about strategic plan. So we're going to have the same conversation. So I think I'll be able to glean some additional questions and insights there, things they might like to be included.
Yeah, and what I might suggest, just as you're thinking through questions, I might suggest think back surveys that you've done in the past, that you have that data that you can do a comparison, right, a benchmark. Here's the first
That
survey.
is some of these questions based on ICTQ and some questions that we've surveyed in the last few years. Not all aligned, because there's some new info that we want, but some of them are comparative.
So these will be sent, everything will be sent out electronically, I assume?
Yes. Once we've determined the questions, Carrie and I will convert that over into a Google form, and then it's something that will just be sent out. We'll send it out multiple times through Parent Square, and then we had a lot of success with the last survey we did, announcing it at like basketball games. While you're waiting at halftime, take a moment and fill out. We did get more responses.
You can do a QR code on the big board, have them scan it while they're there.
So those will be, the responses from the staff will be anonymous though?
Yes.
Okay.
All of the responses are anonymous, except the employer if they want to put their name at the end to be contacted. This is all very helpful, and I know I gave you a lot at once, so if you take it home and you read, you have more feedback, you have certain question thoughts, please send them our way. Our hope is to have them edited by the end of the month, so we can get them converted to digital and be ready to send them out in January. Okay, so work session on that. This next section is on cost containment, and I have kind of, well, tonight, we've strategically kept documents and passed them as we've gotten to them, because otherwise it's really easy to be overwhelmed by the information. But I have quite a few things to pass out, and JCCTA is present, so I want to make sure they are getting a copy too before I start talking about things, so we're all on at the same page. So if you will give us a little grace as we get some papers passed out on cost containment. I'm just going to do one at a time still, though. So if you want to start with, actually, I can do this one and this one. If you will give them a copy, and then I'll just send ours around. Okay. Thank you. And then. getting our papers going around, I'm gonna kind of give some background information. So this has been an ongoing conversation for us for 3 years. Cost containment is not a new conversation. I will say that we have definitely escalated cost containment in the last year and will continue to do so. The background to that, for anyone who is maybe watching and not aware from home, that is related to enrollment loss, and then when you couple that with what we would consider flatline funding from the state. Now, while you might see slight increases on funding from the state, those for us have been eaten up by inflation and then absorbing the cost of textbooks back into our own funding. So that's our main driver for looking at cost containment in the past, prior to this year. And I'm sitting around those enrollment sheets that are gonna be in front of you, and I'm gonna give some summary facts. So the first is a blue chart of current enrollment and a 15-year look back. And over the last 15 years, we've consistently lost an average of 100 students per year over that time. And if you do the math, that means we have 27% less students walking our halls every day than we did 15 years ago. So greater than a fourth of our student population. And so we've been aware, and the last 3 years, as soon as we started a strategic plan, we began working on what does that look like? How do we right size to match our student population? But the first question that came to us was, is this going to continue? So we did engage a demographer. That's the second page. This is the work we did in 2023, where we wanted to look in that pattern. And if you look at the pink box, that is where the demographer predicted we would be this year, as opposed to the 3,610 students that we currently have. It's a difference of 50 students less than what the demographer predicted. But if you will recall, the demographer predicted ongoing enrollment loss for more than 10 years due to demographics in the community, meaning declining population of school-age children. So his numbers only took into account the fact that we did not have as many families with school-age children who would be living in the community within the next 10 years. It did not take into account the inclusion of universal vouchers that came to the state, which meant more students having the option to enroll in private school at a cost-free option. It also did not take into account the rise of online schooling in Indiana, which is very significant to us as a corporation. It was one of our greatest losses of enrollment in the last few years. So that does account for some difference in what the demographer predicted and where we are currently. But if you will note, I just want to make sure that we're all aware, it is still predicted that we would have, if only based on demography results, we would still have student declining rates over the next 7 years continued. He predicted until 2033, 2034. The rate does slow down, if you see that, over the next few years, but it is still there. But again, it doesn't take into account vouchers and online, which have also been a consideration for us. That said, nationwide, there was an article today that talked about all public schools across the nation seeing accelerated enrollment loss. And specifically, that's very true in Indiana. We are not alone in this. Now, the demography portion is very specific to our community and is driven by employment, it's driven by birth and death rate, it's driven by the housing market. There's multiple things in the demographer part that apply to just Jennings County, but the loss of enrollment for public school students is an ongoing issue being faced by public schools in the nation and in Indiana. So we are not alone in that portion. That is the history of why we started working with cost containment. And we've made some significant steps in the last 3 years, and I'm going to review those in a moment. But then in addition to the work we've done and these factors, Senate Enrolled Act 1 came out last year. And we had Barry Gardner come in and do a great presentation for us on how significant the impact of that will be, specifically to our operations fund. And then we will also lose our option into local income tax funding, which is equivalent to about $600,000 for us as a corporation annually. So you're seeing well over an impact of $1 million in the operations side now, in addition to these constraints that we were already facing from the enrollment side. If we continue to lose population, have students take vouchers, online school, in addition to those factors, it's very clear to see we need to continue with cost containment going forward and be very judicious about some decisions we make financially to be fiscally responsible as a corporation. We are not alone, and I'm going to share what is being said in other corporations around the state, given Senate Enrolled Act 1 and the impact of that in Indiana. But I'm going to say this twice because I sure don't want someone to listen at home and think this is what Jennings County is doing. What I'm about to share with you are things that other corporations are doing to account for Senate Enrolled Act 1. So this is an article that was on December 4th in the Indiana Capital Chronicle, and they surveyed superintendents across the state. And they said, you've had a chance to look at your numbers of the impact of Senate Enrolled Act 1. What does this look like for your school? And these were some of their responses and what action steps they are going to have to take as corporations. I am sharing these just so that you see that we are not going to be alone in these budgetary constraints. And there's some really significant things that are going to happen in public education in the state. Again, I'm going to repeat before I start reading these. These are not things for Jennings County. These are a summary of other districts in the state. So the Hoosier superintendents who were surveyed said they would be forced for staff cuts, delaying maintenance, and increasing the likelihood of other reductions. They all said they would have a negative impact to their funding and expect funding, 95% said they would have a negative impact this year, 99% said they would within the 3 years. So this isn't us, and we're not alone. Doesn't make it any easier, but just sharing that data. So what are they going to do to take care of those cuts and to account for that? While their operations funds are shrinking and inflation makes costs continue to climb, and for those of you who have a highlighted copy, I'm just hitting the highlights as I go through. I'm on the 3rd page now. Of the survey done of superintendents, 65% said they have already reduced or will reduce support staff. 55% have already reduced or will reduce teaching staff. Combined with that, 90% reported that they would have cuts to staffing or facilities on the table going forward. So almost all school districts. Things that they mentioned doing would be canceling future bus purchases, scaling back on planned technology upgrades, holding off on building repairs, and preparing for building closures. That is even within corporations within our local area. I'm sure you've heard of some of those in the news recently. Other considerations districts in the state of looking at are a 4-day week, scaling back on their HVAC use to minimum tolerable levels. And here is one that's going to be significant in the state. I'm hearing that a lot of districts are considering running a referendum to raise money separately in 2026. There's one district in the state up north that says if their referendum doesn't pass, they're going to have to eliminate their transportation. If you turn the page, it says the percentage of people considering referendums. It's 90% of leaders surveyed in urban districts were considering it, and 84% in suburban districts. And I was on a call with Barry Gardner, this is some of the work he does, not for us, but in other corporations. And in comparison, in the last election that we just had referendums, there were 6, is that not correct? 6. And if you're talking about half the corporations in the state, you're talking of upwards of 150. That was the kind of difference that you could potentially see with referendums. That does put the decision directly in local taxpayers' hands for corporations who choose to do that. I'm going to repeat one more time, none of those are things specific to Jennings County, but I think it helps give you a perspective as board members of some of the things other corporations are doing in hard financial times.
Nikki, really quick.
Yes.
Because this work session is being live streamed, and this article, is there a way for us to link the article from our website, or so that if someone were to be listening and want to read what is being said in this article specifically, could we do that?
That is a great idea, and Deb, could we maybe put it in the news update section on the website?
Yes.
So it'll say like new information, and it'll pop up with a link.
It just, if people are gonna listen to this recording, because again, the work session is being recorded, they may be interested, and they may be able to get it from the Indiana Capital Chronicle, but still, to have it linked might make it easier for individuals.
We will take care of that. So that said, I want to share what steps we've already taken, and then talk about what next steps look like for us as a corporation. Steps that we've already taken in the last 3 years. We hired the demographer so that we would know what was expected of our population going forward, so we could make wise decisions. We've been working with municipal finance advisors, Baker Tilly. We've partnered with them a long time. They're very good at helping us project forward. And we've worked with Policy Analytics and Barry Gardner. We get a monthly report from Barry Gardner on cash balance, on cash flow, things of that nature to help us make wise decisions. Most significantly, our staff are the greatest majority of our budget. And so we have worked on right-sizing staffing to match what our new enrollment reality is, as opposed to what it was 10, 5, or even 15 years ago. So I want to speak to that, and what is coming to you will look pretty familiar, because you saw it 3 years ago. I feel like that's going to look familiar. It's been a while. This is the exact chart we had in our strategic plan data analysis 3 years ago, the CNA. Pretty close to 4 years ago at this point. And this is our number of staff in categories. So you're going to see the certified category, then you're going to see classified, and total staff. And within these numbers, I want to point out certified would have teachers and administrators who are certified in that category. It's just important to note. So you'll see that our certified staff, all the way from 2013-14 numbers down to the 22-23, that right above the yellow line is when we presented a strategic plan. The yellow line is where we currently are with staff today. And so that's each category. So I'm just going to kind of share those numbers. We our highest number of certified staff on this chart was 341 in 2013-14. When we started our strategic plan, this plan we've been working on for 3 years, we were at 304. So there was some accounting for the change in student enrollment in the certified staff portion over time. However, we've addressed that even further, and our certified staff is now at 287, and that is 17 positions less than where it was 3 years ago. Our classified employees, at its highest point during the COVID years with ESSER funding, was at 359. In 22-23, when we started the strategic plan, it was at 359. We are today at 307. That is 52 staff members less in classified than where we were 3 years ago when we started the strategic plan, and recognize the need for cost containment. So our total staff at the highest on this chart, you'll see, is at 667 in 21-22. Again, there was additional ESSER funding at that time. When we started this strategic plan, we were at 663. Today, we are at 594 for a total of 69 less staff members, all told combined, in the 3 years that we've been working on cost containment through the strategic plan. So I say that to share, we have been already doing cost containment work. We will need to continue to do so, and we will have to account for the continued loss of enrollment that's anticipated, as well as the Senate Enroll Pact. At the same time, we have to account for not planning on increased funding from the state. So there's a lot of factors to combine, and when you look at cost containment. And I will mention, on that chart, I think I can actually put it in this folder. You can do the math on those percentage categories and quickly see that the majority of staff is in the classified category. Thank you. Is in the classified category, but I wrote down certified between admin and teachers. And over that course of time, so 15% of those cuts were in the classified category, 5% were in the teaching category, and 9% were in the administration category. So that might be helpful data to have.
Can you repeat those again?
Yes, I will. 15% are in the classified category, and this is from the strategic plan to now, not the total scope. In the certified category, it's split into two. 5% of the cuts were teachers, and 9% of the cuts were admin positions. Before I move on to next steps, questions about where we've been, the why, and the steps that we've taken? Okay.
Just
please.
really quick, I'm just don't really have a question, I just want to make a comment. I just want to say, this work is not easy.
No.
Like, I think the entire board recognizes that when you're dealing with individuals in positions, and hopefully sometimes we can eliminate positions when a person is not in the position. It doesn't always happen that way. But these numbers, it's a necessity. We have to, in order to keep our school viable and to keep it up and running and to make sure that pay practices are, a benchmark and those types of things. It's critical for us to do that. So I want to commend you all, the whole entire team. This isn't, while you're wonderful, Nikki, it's not just you. We recognize that. It's your whole entire team. This is a lot of work, and I want to say that I recognize that. I also want to just make a comment. I think several board members received some information that was sent to board members about staffing, specifically about staffing and the numbers that we have. It was sent anonymously, so there's no way for us to comment or to have a conversation or a discussion. But this, I think these staffing numbers and this shows the work that's been done that isn't always readily identified online. So I just want to say I appreciate this information very much. Thank you for that.
And I have to also commend JCCTA. We've had to have some really tough conversations, and on the whole, we have always been able to keep the focus on providing the best school experience for kids. And that is hard when you have to have tough conversations. And so I appreciate their partnership and work. And I also appreciate that as we've been working through this process, we have worked as a team whenever possible, to your point, to identify positions that could be absorbed through attrition, to have the least impact to roles and job and employment for people that we can. But it has still been a lot of tough conversations and tough things to do. Okay, so moving on to next steps. Again, I'm just going to share, we anticipate continued decreased enrollment. We know that from the demographer and from our own factors. We anticipate impacts from SEA 1. We anticipate in 2028, Philip, the loss of lit. It doesn't start till January of 2028. We also anticipate that a lot of the grants and funding that have been out there, they're also feeling the pinch of financial times, so there's less of those available. So there are a lot of things on the table that we have to take in consideration for cost containment this year. And I believe strongly that we are going to have to consider an aggressive strategy of cost containment to be fiscally wise and responsible and to continue operations in the manner that we're used to. So this is a list of things that are being considered. I am not tonight, we are not asking for any decisions, of course. We are not saying that these are all things that need or must be done, but they are areas that we can review, and I wanted to bring them up for them to just be something for you to be considering and thinking through. So we need to continue to right-size staffing to match our enrollment and our funding that we're receiving from the state. So that would be the biggest piece. When you talk about staffing being 86% of what we have allocated in funding in general, it has to be a portion we continue to look at. Other considerations, we have prepared a 5-year financial forecast data And we will share that starting in January, February. We need 2025 to close out so that we have that 5th year on the chart. But it allows us to see by sections of the budget where we are trending, if we're trending up or down. So we feel like that will be a really helpful analysis tool. I would like to have a discussion about engaging someone to do a study of our facility use and our district boundaries. Over time, the number of students in classrooms at outlying elementaries versus town elementaries has shifted, and there's some inequities that are there. So I think it's worth a discussion and looking at. I think we also have to be wise to the use of our facilities. We are a county-wide school corporation, which is unique in Indiana. There are not a lot of us, but that means we have a very large physical footprint. And that creates some unique situations for the number of facilities that we have, for the size of our transportation. There's just a lot of significant considerations with the square footage of our county. We are currently, I believe, the 2nd largest transportation system of a public school in Indiana, square miles. So I would like to have some conversation of having someone who is an expert in those areas, doing some studies for us in facility use and district boundaries and those types of areas. Aligning our resources to our strategic plan priorities. I think that although it is difficult to have conversations at the same time you're doing a strategic plan, for us it's also very nice that it gives us the opportunity to talk about what are our priorities? What do we believe is essential for public education for Jennings County Schools? And make sure that the resources we do have, that we're aligning to those agreed priorities. Competitive salaries and benefits. In order to attract and retain high quality staff, we have to put ourselves in a position fiscally to be able to be competitive with salaries and benefits. And so sometimes that might mean that we need to right-size staffing to the level that we're able to do that annually. It's a consideration and it's important to us all, I know. There is a consideration for certified staff retirement incentive. Some corporations have had a lot of success with looking at that and allowing some shifting of staffing cost. The big piece is it must be included in your teacher's contract that year before it can even be discussed. So prior to this year, it was not in our contract recently, so it couldn't be discussed. We did agree to add it in this year, some open language that if the board would like to do so and discuss a retirement incentive, that we can have those open discussions. Facility upkeep. With the age of our buildings, they are in wonderful condition, but it's one of those rolling balls that you have to stay ahead of it. If we do not continue to upkeep our buildings that we have, then we might get in a situation where it's a sizable amount to get something back to where it needs to be. So we need to keep that, even though we're talking about cost containment, we need to keep that as part of the conversation, which earlier, that's what we referenced. We talked about as debt's falling off, getting bonds for long-term maintenance needs rather than projects and new things, trying to see how we can prioritize that. As part of strategic plan, having conversations about what are essential elements to student success. Sometimes in schools, there are things that are wonderful to have, and they can be an attendance incentive for people to come to our corporation. But when you're making a decision between programming, that's where we have to have those tough conversations of what is essential for student outcomes and success and what is perhaps discretionary. And those are some hard programming conversations to have, but those are pieces that we need to consider. Philip and I would like to see us talk about an operations and education budget cash balance policy. So in our Neola policy, we do not have identified a specific cash balance percentage that we would like to target. A lot of times when we have gone through bonding interviews, that's a question that they ask frequently and say, have you considered setting a target to make sure everyone's on the same page of what a cash balance should be? You'll often hear in schools 15% mentioned. That allows you to make 2 payrolls typically in an emergency time. And so I would like to see us have a conversation about what number are we comfortable with and memorializing that in some policy so that we're all on the same page of what our goals are. When would we reach the finish line? What cash balance do we feel is sufficient?
And to touch on that also, since I got here in 2020, we've had somewhat of a luxury between the combination of the 3 ESSERs and 3 grant and 3 bonds now. Those things, until you spend it, it helps you with your cash look from a standpoint of paying bills. It's signified for one thing, but if you look at your just total cash portfolio, those elements have kept us in a what you would consider a higher cash balance in the short run. This would help us in the long run, because if all those went away, we would need to have that reserve to be able to get the timing of the state paying us on the 12th of the month and us making sure our payrolls and taxes and all that stuff would happen. So, and because on top of that, we only get the operations money twice a year. So we've got to float a fair amount of ops cash until the taxpayers pay in May, we get the check in June. Taxpayers pay in November, we just got the amount for that yesterday. We got our December check for yesterday. But those things have all had the luxury of floating with ESSER money and things like that as it was slowly spent. But the volume of it was there to help us create that float. So this is going to be more critical as those things drain down, for sure.
And then to that point, what we would like to do is have a monthly finance report on regular board meetings where we talk about where we're sitting at on those numbers, and give that information. We really want to be as transparent as possible. This is a joint effort. And so to be able to have that report go out and be able to share where we are at in our process. The final other considerations for cost containment are not as significant on bringing in the cost. However, when you add them together, it could have an impact. So I just want to add what other things we're having conversations about. Travel and professional development. The cost of subs for professional development is actually more substantial than one would consider. So having that conversation of what's essential, what's not, are there other ways of getting things done, and what travel should be earmarked as necessary and essential, and what's discretionary. Same thing goes with software purchases. Carrie's already made significant cuts in the software area, but continuing to review those processes. Our supplies and materials, our janitorial supplies, the substitute teacher cost, and finally some things with e-learning that bring on additional cost. And so looking at those considerations. So those are all other subjects and cost containment areas that we're going to be looking at and bringing more information to you. So the timeline for all of that, there are a few things that are bound by contracts that we have a timeline. A decision on the retirement incentive would need to be made prior to mid-February, because that's when that would need to be offered for certified staff. Other timelines, then the conversations would be comparable to what we did last year with those April and May timelines for anything staffing. Things that are non-staffing can be at any time. Our focus has been through the last 3 years, even as we have done these cuts, is in a given school year, continuity of instruction. So we do not make new changes that impact the individual student in the classroom unless there's no other viable option to finish that school year. So we would maintain that focus of continuity for our kids being the first and foremost consideration. Questions, anything you'd like me to expand upon? Again, it's not detailed numbers on any of those yet. I just wanted to give you a broad overview of the types of things that we're looking at.
What's the good news?
The good news is we're doing it now.
The good news is, in the midst of 3 years that we have gone down 69 staff members, we have some of the highest academic and graduation rates we have ever had in this version of iLearn and modern graduation. So I would say the good news is our staff is getting it done regardless of hard times, and they care about the kids so much they don't let anything fall no matter. So it's a big celebration to them. That was a lot for one evening. Anything, questions or additional information? As you digest all of this over the upcoming days, hours, please feel free to send me any follow-up questions or comments, and then I'll get those kind of collected for us. Motion to adjourn since we're right
motion by Travis, do I have a second?